Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, and welcome to Every Strand Counts with your host, Dana Wilson. We will get started here shortly. Please share with others so they can partake in this conversation.
In audio. In audio. In audio.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Dana Wilson of Every Strand Counts, which is brought to you by Hair Cares Inc. Our vision is to empower others with the understanding that every strand counts. We believe that every root, every lesson, every experience, every legacy makes a difference in our lives. So we feature conversations with various leaders, authors, speakers, entrepreneurs who long and are willing to share their stories and offerings to benefit others. So today, let me put it up on our screen here. Let me see if I can get it together. Today, our show is called Grief to Gratitude. And I am so excited to introduce our guest, which is Lynn Lewis, who is a Grief to Gratitude certified grief coach. And Lynn is also one of my co authors in our upcoming book called Prepare for Purpose, Your Invitation to the Next Level. Let me bring her up. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Lynn, please tell us who you are and what is a grief certified grief coach. Please share with us about that.
Okay, sure. I will be glad to. But first, let me just say thank you so much for inviting me to this space. I'm just excited to be here to absorb some of your good energy.
Thank
So,
you.
who am I? I am your certified grief coach. And with that, I serve, encourage, inspire adults who have experienced or are in a season of grief.
Okay.
Those are adults who have decided that they are ready to move forward with their lives. They've acknowledged and accepted that this happened
Mm-hmm.
and they are ready to move forward. So I get to guide them, to serve them, to support them as they do so, and guiding them from pain to peace, from heartbreak to happiness, and grief to gratitude. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I do. I am also, as you know, an author, co-author.
Yes.
I am an educator in the fact that I desire and am on a mission to educate our society about grief, and one day hope that we will be able to talk to grief just like we talk about the weather, just like we talk about our hair, our
Okay.
outfit, the next movie that is coming out. So that's part of my mission. I'm
Mm-hmm.
husband. I'm wife to Keith Lewis, and we reside in Richmond, Virginia area. Big sis to three siblings who, even in our veteran age, we are still very tight, very close, love hanging out with each other.
Good
That's a
stuff.
little bit about me.
Yeah. Lynn, tell me what is grief? Because my first mind goes to loss or death. But what is grief?
So, in the simplest forms, grief is the emotional response or reaction to a loss. Usually, when we hear the word grief, we think about death,
Yes.
and that's the arena that I work in mostly. But it can be the response to job loss, career loss, a loss of relationship, by divorce or separation, even separation from family members, friends, and also loss of health.
Oh,
When a person who is vibrant and then they have a diagnosis, a health diagnosis that just changes their whole trajectory of their lives, that can cause grief because, again, in its simplest form, grief is the response. It's the emotional response to a loss.
wow. So how did you get in this space? Because this is not, I ain't gonna say it's not normal, but this is not a standard um coaching space. So how did we get here?
Yeah, you don't hear of it as much. And actually, I got to it, Dana, by research.
Okay.
After the tragic death of my son um, in 2019, it was about 7 months after I decided that, you know what, this is going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life, but I am not going to allow it to consume me. So I've got to figure out a way that I can live with it, that I can move forward with living a meaningful and productive, impactful life,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of this burden of grief. And I was just doing some research on our friend Google one
Yeah.
day, and I came across grief coaching. It's like, what is grief coaching?
Oh.
Because I had been to the support group, which was fine. I
Mm-hmm.
had an individual grief therapist, which was working for me, but I wanted more. It's like, okay, this has happened. What's next? And I came upon grief coaching, and I say it was divinely inspired, Dana, because the site that I came upon that caught my attention
Mm-hmm.
was From Grief to Gratitude Grief Coaching.
Wow.
And I read about it, looked at it, um, thought about it, and I said, this is for me because, and this is a program and a course designed by Miss Dora Carpenter in the Washington, D.C. area.
Oh, okay.
And what really caught my attention is she talked about how even though you're going through your own season of grief, you can help others as well. And the more I thought about my own situation and how I wanted to continue to live, as I said, with this burden of grief, and I said, there must be others who feel the same way.
Right.
And thus here I am as a grief coach.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm gonna be honest, that's impressive to me because we can get caught up in our own stuff in such a way that we're not thinking about other people while
Right,
we're going through that. And so for you to already be know that and attracted to that whole idea immediately, because I say immediately because you said 2019, right?
right.
When did you start being looking to being a
So
coach?
I actually launched it in 22.
Oh, that's,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, last year.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I launched, I kind of went into a dark, not dark, but just a heavy time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually around this time last year. So I was down. I was functioning, but so I had to take a step back and say, okay, maybe I'm not quite ready to help others.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how you have to have that talk with yourself
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, like, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on? And then
Mhm.
at some point you get tired of feeling blah.
Yeah.
And so just having that talk with myself, praying about it, talking to confidants about it. It's like, okay, so you're stagnant. What are you going to do about it? It's time to pivot.
Mhm.
And so then I was able to rise back up to, okay, I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
ready. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go.
So I
And
don't
but
know.
it hasn't been easy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um, but the other part, little backstory, is that I've always known that part of my purpose was to help women, to care for women, to encourage them, inspire them. But when this grief thing happened to me, and then was like, okay, you're still supposed to do that, but how? How am I going to minister to, encourage somebody else when I have a lot of days that I need it? And it just, it's just been coming together. And so here we are.
Wow. That was pretty fast, though. 3 years in my mind was pretty quickly to jump in the waters of supporting others. So I commend you for doing that.
Thank
It's a
you.
beautiful thing. I have a special needs son, and I remember uh, when I guess the doctors was, sharing with us all the possibilities that could exist. And for some reason, I had an overwhelming feeling that this wasn't just for me, right? That I was going to one day be able to help somebody else. I didn't know that when that one day was going to be, but one day I was going to be able to help somebody else, and it wasn't just for me. And like you shared, you go through those highs and lows, right? When you're ready to get in to help people, and then you retreat back and then you add it again. But I think just
Right.
being at it and having that commitment and knowing that you can share something with somebody else in a way that would help them is, all that matters.
Yes.
But tell me, what is the difference between the coaching versus the therapy?
Okay. Therapists, they have the credentials. They've been to school. They have done the grad work. They deal more with the what happened in the past.
Okay.
Um, Coaching is we deal more with the future, the action. Okay, here we are. How do we move forward?
Love it.
And it's very similar to life coaching, which most people are more familiar with life coaching. How a
Mhm.
life coach, you go to a life coach, say, okay, I want to do this. I think I want to do this. And the life coach kind of helps you through that. And grief
Right.
coaching is very similar. Someone, like I said, they're okay, I'm ready to continue to move forward. I want to move forward, but I need some help. I need some guidance. So that's one of the main differences. Um, Therapists can diagnose a situation where grief coaches, we do not, absolutely, we cannot diagnose anybody's issues. And we can share like the suicide hotlines or the grief hotlines, give resources, but as far as to say, to diagnose something, we cannot do that.
So I'm thinking, Lynn, so in my mind, I'm thinking that, I mean, obviously a prerequisite to being this kind of coach is that you've had some loss. But how do you get certified in this? Like what do you have to demonstrate to now be able to coach someone else through some grief?
Good question. Actually, you don't have to be certified. Just like any other
Okay.
coach, they can decide, I'm going to coach.
Right.
It behooves you to have done some work. And there are persons who, you don't have to have been through a situation to be able to coach someone or decide to coach.
Okay.
So, but again, um, I think people will trust you more if you have been through, or you are providing support to someone who has been through a situation similar to theirs. But there are programs. There are even in the local colleges.
Mm-hmm.
There are grief coaching programs that you can take and
Wow.
be certified. So what you do is, the professors, if you will, of those programs, there are so many stages of grief. So you learn about things like that,
Mm-hmm.
how to talk to people. We talk about just a plethora of things that you go through to help you. But some of the main things, Dana, is listening, being a listener, being
Okay.
a great listener, not being judgmental, um, I I'm feel certain in saying, even with your experience with your son,
Mhm.
people make assumptions or say things that they think going to make you feel good.
Right.
So, but they don't always make make a difference. So we learn different things like that, and be a friend to someone who is going through, because it can be lonely. It can feel lonely. It can feel like you're by yourself. So yeah, as a coach, um, that's what we do.
Mhm.
That's what I do.
And I hope you don't mind. I'm just setting this question up. I hope you don't mind. And if you do, please just tell me nicely.
Right.
Because of my experience with grief, right? Um, people, um, the healing rate is different, right? And so you have a husband and you move pretty quickly because 3 years is fast to me, right? 3 years, you move pretty quickly with moving on with the coaching. Um, did you guys move at the same kind of rate of pace? Was he okay in that space when you were ready to encourage other people?
Yes, he's very supportive. We check in with each other all the time. For instance, our son's 34th birthday would have been last week, Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And that week, my husband he had attitude. I'll
Okay.
put it that
Okay.
way. He
Okay.
just, he didn't want to be bothered. He said, he told his coworkers, he said, "Today I'm Keith from the neighborhood that he came from. I am not Bishop Keith this week.
Okay. Okay.
I'm Keith from the hood, basically." I mean, he wasn't mean or
I
but
understand.
he was just in his feelings about it.
Yeah.
Where for me, this year, I was more upbeat, and I thought about funny things, and even my post was a story that about him,
Mhm.
and so I was more upbeat. But we check in with each other and try
Yeah.
to not try. We do support each other, and fortunately for me, I'll explain why I say for me. But fortunately for me, my husband was open to therapy.
Yeah.
He was open to doing a support group. And that was very fortunate for both of us, because we've come into contact with other couples,
Yes.
and not just husband wife couples, but other persons who have other children, and the family don't want to talk about it. So that, aside from having lost their child or spouse or sibling, then nobody in the nucleus of the family wants to talk. So that adds to their loneliness
Yeah.
there. Like, wow, nobody wants to talk about him or her, or
Mhm.
but I'm very fortunate in that
Oh,
we do.
you're blessed.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
no, you're
yes,
blessed.
very,
That's why
very
I
much
asked you
so.
that question, Lynn, because it's been my experience. It is so challenging for couples and families because people heal at different rates. Someone else is ready. In fact, I was just watching a show the other day, and the family had lost a son, and the mother was on TV doing interviews and was fighting different laws and stuff,
Mhm.
and the husband wanted to just stay to himself. He didn't want her to do that. And they were in this battle with each other. She like, no, we got to do something. She was in the moment, in the emotion, and ready to fight the world, and he was not. And it was such a big conflict between them. That's why I asked that question, because I know that exists in families.
It does. And since this has happened to our family, I've said to, just in general, that I now understand why some families, they split up, but like spouses or marriages split up because of that struggle, and they just give up because one might blame the other. They say things, they do things, and that on top of, so that's like a double dose of grief. You
Absolutely.
lose your relationship, you've lost your, your person. And so but I understand how it could happen. I
No,
really
I
do.
can too. I could clearly
Mhm,
see that
mhm,
clearly. Because even with my experience with my son, it might be one parent. I mean, and I've been around many couples with special needs kids at this point, and one parent is still in denial about the circumstance. Some
mhm.
ready to fight, some not. It could be very stressful on the family when you have grief or any kind of loss added to the situation.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
we also allow each other to have our space.
Okay.
Excuse me. I know our son died by suicide. So it
Okay.
was for like probably a year. I could not say it. I would say presumably that everything pointed that way. It was nothing
Okay.
saying otherwise. But I would always say presumably,
Yeah.
because he didn't leave any note. He didn't leave any, anything like that.
Okay.
But my husband, once we got the evidence and
Mm-hmm.
the what do you call it, the examiner's report,
Yes.
he was okay with saying it. But
He
it took me
accepted it.
probably a year.
Okay. He accepted it right immediately.
Yeah, he accepted it more immediate than I do. And then I have a really good friend who I've met in this space that I think her son was gone 3 years now, and she still, she
Yeah.
cannot say
Okay.
it. She
Okay.
cannot
Wow.
say his name and that in the same sentence.
Wow.
And you mentioned it earlier, Dana. Yes, everybody grieves differently. Everybody heals differently. Everybody, it's I say it's like our fingerprint.
Yeah.
Our fingers look the same, but when we have to put it under the microscope, so to speak,
Right.
they
Right.
all look different. And that's how our grief journey is different. It's
Wow.
different.
So, how do you, as a grief coach, because we know that everybody grieves differently, take me through your client journey? When I reach out to you, I need some help. Um, Take me through the journey. How do you, I guess, figure out where I'm at and where I need to go?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So one of the very first things we do is to help you, um, and basically by asking, have you accepted that it happened?
Okay.
Have you acknowledged that it happened? Well, first is acknowledge, okay, because when a death happens, one of the first things that happen is no, 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 no,
Right.
denial. No, that can't be. No, that can't be. So when we began even in the consultation, really is okay. Um, have you acknowledged that it happened? Um, have you accepted that it happened? And acceptance does not mean that you got to forget, that you got to get over, that I got to fix you because you're not broken. It's nothing that you got to get over. But have you accepted that it happened, that that person is not coming back?
Mm-hmm.
And now what do you want to do about it? What do you want to do next?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people are able to say, I'm ready to move on with my life, but I don't know if I should, or I feel guilty for moving on. So we talk through those things.
Okay.
What do you want a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now to look like? And then for me personally, with my clients, I always want to check in with their self care, their self love. I call it self love.
Okay.
How are you taking care of yourself? Because that is an integral part of being able to manage your grief. That is huge for me,
Okay.
huge. And so I always add that as a module, so to speak.
Okay.
Um, we talk about, okay, so you're at this point. Now, how do you want to remember your person? You
Okay.
know, what legacy did they leave? What do you want to um, how do you want to remember them? How do you want to them to how do you want to remember them, and how do you want them to be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
And you asked the question earlier, how do we measure if it's effective? Because people tell us, they show us when, for instance, one of my clients, when I met, and this happened to be a gentleman, his thing was, I just want to be able to handle this better. I
Okay.
just want to be able to handle this grief better. You know, I'm crying all the time. It's been 2 years. I just want to handle it better. And so we, met for, I think it was probably about the fourth session we had. And I asked, I said, are you feeling better? Do you feel like, he said, yes.
Okay.
And I said, what about it? And he said, just being able to talk,
Oh,
just
wow.
talk about it, and, no judgment, and all of that kind of stuff. And so you see it, it's like you see a person just kind of get taller,
Mm-hmm.
lighter.
Yeah.
And I assure them, I don't know how long it's going to be, because again, everybody's journey is different. But
Right.
right now, your grief might feel like a sharp piece of glass, just
Right.
cutting.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's going to get softer. It's going to be more gentle. It's not going to hurt as bad.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And there may be some relapses, but because of where you come from, now you know it's not going to be that way always.
Right.
So just things like that. And it's, again, each person is
That's
different.
totally a personal, the success measure
Yes,
clearly is going to be so different from one person to the next.
most
So,
definitely.
so where does one go to advertise their grief coaching services? Where, where is the market, so to speak?
The market is, a lot of times it's by word of mouth, by
Okay.
referral,
Okay.
by people seeing, such as they'll see our talk.
Yes.
Um, when you hear about, in your church setting, just in your
Okay.
settings, and wherever your settings are, wherever your community is. And for me, my community is wherever I happen to be. So today, my
Okay.
community is your community.
Good
It's
stuff.
our community. Um, People refer, they go looking for, just
God.
like I was looking for some help.
Yes.
There are all of these platforms. There are different groups, like meetup groups and
Mhm.
support groups that's online. So just a little bit of research
Mhm.
can
So
can
you're just standing and available.
yes, and listening.
Yeah.
Just listening. For instance, if I was having a conversation with you and you may share, Lynn, I have, a friend or coworker who he's having a very hard time
Hmm.
since XYZ happened to, whomever. And so if I'm listening, if I'm paying attention, would Dana let them know that someone who would be glad to talk to them and see if there's any help, anything I can offer. So
Wow.
it's really that way.
Yeah.
I work with adults just by preference, mostly women, but because women are usually more open to talk, but
Mhm.
I'm finding that men are willing to talk to. Again, it just depends on the person.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so
Wow. Now tell me, let's switch gears a little bit about
okay.
your chapter in our book, our upcoming book, Prepare for Purpose. Can you give us a little sneak peek of what it might be all about?
A little sneak peek about what it's all about is really about what I've talked about today. It's
Okay.
a more in-depth look at what happened and then how I managed to thrive, and the specifics about how I managed to thrive in the aftermath of it. And one of the sneak peek, the sneak peek would
Mhm.
be what I'm doing today is sharing some of my story.
Okay.
So,
Love
but
it.
you got to read the book. I
That's right.
can hardly wait to read the book. I want to read everybody's
That's
story.
right. I'm so excited, and I am honored to be amongst all of you guys. Um,
Oh, me too. Me
we
too. I
definitely.
just feel so humbled, and
I know.
sometimes it's like a little bit of what do you call it? Imposter syndrome. It's
That's
like,
right. That's right.
do
Is
I even?
is this your first book?
This
Uh,
is my first book. This is my
Mine
first,
too. Mine
yes,
too.
my first book. And I could not have asked for a better experience. It's been
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes,
It's been
yeah. I can't.
wonderful.
I'm excited. I can't wait for the world to read those words and hopefully walk away with something that touch, move, and inspire them.
I believe they will. I really believe they will. Just by listening to you all's interviews, it's like, oh, I want to read the story. I want to read the whole story. I want to read the whole story. But yeah, just that, and we all have a story. It's just how we decide when we want to share the story with the masses.
Yeah, yeah. So, Lynn, how can people get in touch with you?
I am available by good old email
Hmm.
at Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. No, nope. The email is destined to thrive at outlook.com.
Okay.
The website is
Yeah.
destined to thrive
Yeah.
griefcoaching.com.
Yes.
And then I'm on Instagram as Grief Coach Lynn.
Okay.
And then if somebody just wants to pick up the phone and text or call
Hmm.
804-404-6059.
Perfect. And then you guys.
And Facebook, I'm active on Facebook as well.
Perfect. And you guys see, I have her website up here on the banner, and I'm so sure that all of those links and information is where. In fact, I know I went out there, so um, all that information is out there on her website. Thank you so much, Lynn, for coming. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to be here with me.
Thank you, Dana. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you and in the book, reading you about you
Yes,
in
I
the
know.
book, in the story.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. All right, everybody. Oh, let me change my banner. Um, thank you so much for partaking in this conversation with me and Lynn about grief to gratitude. And please stay connected with me. You can go to my website, haircaresinc.com. I also have a couple Facebook communities, the Sister Lock Society and Trico Locks as well. I stay tuned, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you. Bye bye.